silence. Order. I have returned to the demo scene, to all those people who were so mean. I will destroy everything they got. Make me your leader, vote for evil bot.
Vielen Dank, dass ihr zurückgekommen seid. Thanks for coming back. So we have roughly 1 hour left. So there was like one request, how do we actually code operators? So I will cover this. I think I will cover it a little bit quicker than it might be necessary, but it will show the basics. There was also the request to actually show to animate something. I also have on the plate that I want to show how to integrate like stuff like MIDI and sensors and things like that, which is actually a very powerful feature because it's quite convenient in there. Any more requests you want to see? Something I should definitely squeeze in there? Okay, well, the plate is already filled anyways, so so during the break, I got a couple of questions, which I quickly summarize now. One question was, so can I do procedural textures? And then, since everything is node-based and graph-based, of course you can. So we quickly patch this thing here together. Now we have, we don't see much from our nice pink background here, but what we see is that there is now some kind of texture on our torus, and this texture is basically it's our chipmunk again, and with some displacement and some detect edges, and we apply this with a set texture. And since it's all procedural, of course you can do things like maybe lock this thing here, or maybe we go into, we find something in our so something like this. So we say, okay, this is the this here. So there's something called angle here. So it will like do something. We set keyframes. So and then you get the idea. So you can now like move these back and then, and of course it will be procedural. So and you can use these textures for all kinds of stuff, and since you can also write your own shaders, you could use this, for instance, to write fancy displacement functions or whatever. So for our project, I get rid of this because so it will make things a little bit too complicated. Actually, let's keep the set texture. The set texture, you will need this so frequently. Let's keep this in here. So between the torus and the zebra shader, we don't want that. We take a load image and we connect this, and now we have, or maybe we add like a color grade and reduce the saturation, so it's not, so it's greenish. Oh, this looks very interesting. And then we go back to the torus, and we initially had this thing here. broke it. Maybe like complete this and make this a little bit smaller. Right, actually, let's do without the texture. The texture is ugly. So, and the other question was, can I do movies with that? Well, you can a little bit. So there is an operator called render images to file. And what this one wants is a resolution and a frame rate, FPS, and a time range. So it uses a fixed time range. In this case, it's like 240 seconds, so 4 minutes. And it wants an image input. So you can take whatever you've got, render this to an image, connect this to render images to file, and you could press play and hit return and will basically render an image sequence with PNG 16-bit with alpha. So, and then you can use whatever tool you have to convert this image sequence and combine it with your audio again. Yeah, it will completely ignore whatever you have in the where you are. You will basically start from whatever is in there. Here, start from the time range from 0 to this, and it will print a number that's counting up from 0 to 1 to indicate that it's processing something. So it's not.
You have to press play and then trigger.
Yeah, it's not the most convenient, but I think there's some documentation here. The important thing is to know that it works and it's there, and then you will figure it out. I think it's one of the not so convenient features of Tool, but it's good enough that we found a lot of other tasks we started first. So what I quickly want to do is add some animations and also some sequencing. So obviously we want to have a camera animation. We had this before, so maybe you can follow along again. So I moved the time. By the way, to change the time, you have to click on the time numbers here. So up there, this is the region where you select keyframes and stuff. To change the time, you drag it here. And to go to the beginning, you can also press pause 1. So then we set right mouse button, or any mouse button actually, on this menu in front of the parameter, opens this animation menu. We make set keyframe. And we pull, or maybe we start like very closely with something abstract, I don't know. And then we pull the camera back. And then we press play. Maybe move the camera down. X is going down, E is going up. But the documentation, so if you are stressing out that you are not following along, there are like tons of YouTube videos that go through all these basics, how to move in the selection views and things like that. So it explains all the hotkeys. So you should not stress out about this. And then we said, okay, we want to have like smooth interpolation. We go back to the beginning. Okay, this is way too slow. So we select all these, we drag them a little bit closer. Maybe move this a bit further. So, okay, this is our first part. And let's say now we want to have I don't know, a cube popping in. I don't know. I don't really trying to make things up here. So to have something that is popping in at a certain time or area, for this we need something called a time clip. And so if we press quick create and do time, there is time clip switch and time clip. And so time clip actually can do something like remapping times, which I can only emphasize this is super powerful, but it's too powerful for humans. So it's you should not use this because you will build things that you can't understand anymore, because remapping times, you are not made for that. So it will do really weird stuff. It's too complex for me, so if I don't use it, you should trust me. Don't use time clip, use time clip switch. Disabling scenes is good enough. It's like all our demos are made with time clip switch. If we create this, we see something like a little bit like Abbott or so. Time clip here. Of course, we can select this. By convention, I have this. I use square brackets to indicate that it's a time clip. So this, I have like square brackets, open, close, and then it's like my cube. So I don't know why, but this is my convention to say this is a time clip. Otherwise, I would have to add like my cube time clip. It would be too long. And then we create a cube, and we drag this into the time clip. And then we make a small gap between the camera. Let's get rid of all this kind of stuff here. And the replicate. We create a group node. We take the group node. We start dragging the group node. We press Control. We make the mouse pointer hover over the connection line. We split the connection line. We take the output of my cube and connect it with the group. And so in the middle we see there's some group here. So let's move this. So if you're following along, I'm selecting the cube. I press tab, I type transform, and now I inserted a transform between the cube and the time clip. And now I can move this cube around here, or somewhere here, and maybe scale it up a little bit. Maybe something like maybe it's a skyscraper or something, and so it's like sitting here. And maybe it's a row of skyscrapers. So we have something like this is repeat over here, scene repeat. Multiple copies. So scene repeat with like 45 copies and a translation of 2.x, which gives us a row of maybe something like a wall or so. And if I now scrub through my time, I see like these cubes are only being rendered when I'm inside the time clip, which means I can now so maybe I want to have, after this first passage of this classic music, I want to have the cubes being inserted. So I can take this time clip and move it here and make it a little bit shorter. And if I'm pressing play, maybe quickly create another cube here. So now, if we press play, we see that if you look closely, then we see that the time clip is being evaluated, but not its children. But if you hit the time clip, then the children are also evaluated. And you can have any number of these time clips, so you can copy them and move them around and split them and things like that. The order in which they are arranged at the bottom doesn't have any implication whatsoever of the evaluation order. The evaluation order is only given or defined by this group connections. So let's remove this, and maybe have something like the cubes coming in from the bottom or something. So we maybe have the scale here. Animate. And maybe make this move. And then what happens very often is that you can drag around here to see your keyframes, but very often you want to only see a couple of keyframes to do this, you can select your keyframes you want to see and press F for focus, and it will arrange the scale the viewport so in the time in the animation editor to only show the selected or all keyframes. So this is going here, and then it's also I mentioned it earlier very briefly. If you press Shift snaps, which means that you can actually do things like take the left side of this edit box. Right now it doesn't really change, but if I press Shift, it will snap to all the beats here, click, 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 but it will also snap to the beginning of our time clip. And vice versa, this works for everything that is within the time clip, the time view, so I can also take the end, and for instance, like, slide this, and it should actually snap to the, or maybe it doesn't. Okay, I'm discussing this. So, smooth. And obviously, our camera sucks. We should actually change. Something is going here. Let's, with Shift, let's look at this wall. Maybe move this a little bit back. Okay, so. Oh my God, best demo ever. So, one thing we had earlier was this, let's build this credit component because it shows how to publish parameters and reuse them, and I think this would be a nice exercise. So to do this, we say we have like a small component that is made of a job, by, and the name. No, it didn't. I take no responsibility. So this means we create a text. We name this, let's say, music. We take another text and another text. We say we call this by. Gema. Maybe not Gema, just to make sure we don't get into problems. Then we connect all these three nodes into a group. And to do this quickly, you could take these outputs, but the output nodes, or noses, we call them, they are like a little bit too small to click them. So you can press Control and then drag the region from the operator out. So it's a little bit easier to connect them. And now if I select a group and I hit lock to the group and I press F, we see our text here. Then we change the horizontal line to right, and maybe move this a little bit to the left. And this we move a little bit to the right. And actually, you could do smart things like I think this is the last width. You could actually start to program here. So obviously, what's the padding here between the by and the name of the author? So what happens if somebody decides to like localize this? So make it like not by, but let's say just like take a slash or something like this. So then you can take the second output of the text, which is called last width, and say, okay, we didn't have the grayish operators. Grayish operators means everything related to numbers. So if the primary output of an operator is a number, a value, then it's a gray operator. We call this math operators. And if you take the output of such an operator and drag it on a parameter, then this one is connected. Well, obviously this is way too much. So we multiply this a little bit here. and if things work nicely, then we could actually insert a text, and the white side will be padded automatically. So then we have a group here. Maybe we move it here, so it's matching this. Let's take the complete group and move it around. So we have transform. So we want to have the possibility to move like our credit line here. And, yep.
How do you reset the camera of the view?
F. You click inside the view viewport and press F for front view. Now here we, in our demo, we had a group here, and we could add our credit line to this group, and maybe we could actually see this, but then it would move with this camera, and this is actually not what we want, because we want the credits to be always in front and bold and stuff. So to do this, we could actually use this final output, layer 2D, and add a new group to that, and group this one here. And now if I take this one, ungroup it, now the credits are independent of the camera. And now if I want to have multiple credits, which is a completely valid point, then you might think, okay, the valid way to do this is we take a group. Just by convention, I have this, for the time clip, I have this convention that I use square brackets to indicate that it's a time clip. For groups, I have the convention that I have like a plus prefix. And sometimes I only have groups to name stuff, which is completely legit. It doesn't cost you any performance whatsoever. So if you have like a subpath of a scene graph and you want to remember what it was, like some stuff with cubes, then it's completely legit to have like one group with only one input and name this something with toruses or something. So we call this one credits, and we split it in here. Doesn't change anything, of course, because the group doesn't do anything. It doesn't have a transformation or so. And then one approach would be to select all these operators, copy them, and paste them. And then have move this down, so we have 2 credits here. What you might notice is it's a glitch. It's good that actually that it now occurs, because we said that every selection view initializes a context, and the context comes with a camera. So if we enable the gizmo here, we see that we can actually rotate whatever is being evaluated there, and it sets the default camera. And for the credits, this is like not what we want, because it's like for the demo, we always want to have like a precise camera. That's why just on top we just add another camera, just to make sure that the camera is being well defined and we have the camera under control. And it's important to note that if I'm putting back this camera, I'm not putting back the primary camera later, because this thing here has its own camera and is overwriting the default camera. Okay, now I could go in here and say the design was done by a guy. So, and then we could use the transform to move this around. Obviously, this method sucks. It's really bad, because once you have like a big production and you have tons and tons of credits, and somebody said, wait a second, we should replace the by with a slash, then you have like lots of work. And also like it's really hard to figure out like, okay, what's the proper font size and colors and all kinds of stuff. So whenever you notice, oh, wait a second, I have like a bunch of operators, and it can be as little as 2 operators that do something, but have too many parameters, then it's always time to group this stuff into a new operator. And my experience is that the better you group your operators, the faster you actually work, because you start to iterate your parameters, you tweak things, and you start thinking about actually, hey, what is the thing that I'm building here actually supposed to do? What is it made of? What's the core use? So we select all these parameters here, these operators here, right click, and press combine. Now we already have the projects.ping namespace, but I always call this helpers subnamespace for this project, and I call this credit. Now I have a new operator. Of course, if I, so there's a small glitch here, there's the color is not updated. We will fix this in a second. I duplicated always Control V, Control C, Control V. And Control V, it inserts where your mouse pointer is. So for instance, so you can move around and then insert, like, I don't know if this is meaningful, but sometimes it's actually useful to actually define where it's being positioned. And once again, I can put this into our credits group. Nothing changes because wait a second, like how can I now change what is being credited? That's why we go into the credit operator, and the first thing we want to change is, okay, what's the job and who did it? For this reason, we select the first text, we right click and press, we right click this, sorry about that. We right click the animation menu in front of the parameter name and press publish as input. And now it will ask me, what's the title of this input parameter? We say, text is a little bit awkward because somebody might want to use this credit operator later, so this would be job title. And the default value for job title is what? Sorry about that. And we go into the second, actually the guy who did it. We right click on the text, we publish it as input, and we say name. Somebody. And then we can go out here. And now we already see that, so the first instance still had music, not gamer. The second one already has what by somebody. And we can go in here and say like iPhone Steve. Actually, no, wait a second, this should be Windows Phone. So now, okay, they are sitting on top of each other. We don't want that, so we at least need the parameters to move the stuff around. So now we have to make the decision, do we need 3 coordinates for that? Because if it's green real estate, maybe, maybe not. So, but let's start with that. We publish this as input, and we name this position. And every time tool finds that the selected operator has a parameter with the name of position, center, title, translate, or something like this. So there are a couple of titles or synonyms. Then you also get like this gizmo here, and so you can drag it around and position it. So now I can, so I first have to select the operator, but now I can drag it a little bit and arrange it. And now we can go into, okay, let's change the font size. So we have like now 3 text operators, but they all should have the same font size. So we go into add value, right mouse button on the bottom, add value. Also add a parameter of type value, actually the full title of that. Okay, sorry about that. So this is the output area, this is the input area, or you could also name it a parameter area. And if I click here with the right mouse button, then I get a context menu that provides me with a couple of things I can add. There are some convenience functions for adding like 3 of these inputs at once. Most of the time, so we just add a value input. And then we name this value input font size. Font size. So. And then we can actually go in here, and now we can drag this input and drag it on font size. We take this here and we drag this on font size. We take this here and drag this on font size. Oh no, all our font sizes are gone. But now if you select the background here, so either you have like an operator selected. If you have no operator selected, then the current container is being selected, and here I already see the parameters we created, which is job title, name, position, and font size. We see that, oh, the font size, the default value is obviously 0, which is like not a good idea. So we can scale this down to a font size that makes sense. And then we can press right mouse button, set as default. And now, like initially, all instances of this credit thing now get a default font size of 0, James Bond font size. And yeah, basically now I can go along and say like, okay, maybe we want to have like shadow. Okay, maybe shadow is a good idea. So we right click, publish input, shadow color. I know it gets really cumbersome, so I could connect like all these shadows to these three texts. But yeah, we don't have to go that way. Yeah, so now I can, of course, say maybe I want to animate them. So I want to say like, okay, they should move from left to right, and they should fade in and out. So to fade in and out, we at least need at least like this thing here. So you can also open the group, the parameter group, to publish only one of these parameters. So if you don't want to publish the complete color, because you know it's always going to be white, and you only need the alpha, then you can open it, right-click on color alpha, publish as input, and name this opacity. And now I have an opacity here, and with this I can move out the first thing. Okay, obviously, with right mouse button in the input area, I can scroll these regions. It's not very beautiful, but it will work. So go over here and connect all these. Should make sure that the default opacity is 1. And now I can start animating. So let's say we go in here, and then we say, okay, the first credit, we should rename this thing. Why? Because it's music. And we right-click on the opacity, animate. We go a little bit back. We drag this down to 0. Now we see that for some reason I don't see the keyframe here. This sometimes happens because, I don't know, but if you press, or maybe you have to select it. Okay, yeah, I had to reselect it. But I can basically go through this, or maybe actually I should play back. There should be enough time to read the, I set the keyframe, I fade it out. Maybe we also want to animate the position, the horizontal position, to make it look nicer. There are some hotkeys to step through keyframes. We animate the horizontal position, we go in here, and we move this over here. Very beautiful. And sometimes if you have a complex animation like this, you can either like animate the component and reuse the same animation over and over again. There's a way to do that. Or you can copy and paste the keyframes. It doesn't matter. So both ways are legit. To copy the keyframes, the workflow right now is, it doesn't work with hotkeys. It only works with the context menu. You have to remember that. But then you can copy keyframes and go back to this other operator and then the keyframes will be inserted at the current time. Since we want to have these, like the Windows Phone jump in a little bit later, we can insert keyframes. And now we have like oh my god. Well, and then you can imagine, okay, like more people join the team, so this is super easy because we have our credit feature ready, and it's like super easy to, for instance, for somebody, if somebody wants to go in and say like, wait a second, like the soul, like it should never be by because by is like, I hate that. So we can change this into like whatever, like a slash or something. Or if somebody says like, wait a second, it should always have like a little bit of drop shadow, then you can go in and add a little bit of drop shadow. Oh, and then obviously you run into things like, oh, wait a second, if the drop shadow is rendered without the text, which in this case it is, then you can do some easy math to, for instance, have like multiply, take the opacity, maybe like take the original font size, and then you would have to reconnect the shadow color. Okay, now I'm drifting away quite a bit, but was this clear what I just did? So okay, the text operator has two colors. It has a shadow color and the main text color. And for some reason, the shadow color is not influenced by the main text color, which might be a bug, maybe not. But this is the way it is right now. And so what we wanted to do is, in this operator, in this credit, we animated the opacity. But the opacity was only connected to the text color, which means that, okay, we faded out the text color, but then the drop shadow of this faded out text was still visible, but we didn't want that. So we used the opacity also to go into a multiply node, because we didn't want to have full opacity, we just wanted to have a little bit of shadow. That's why we multiplied with something. And we can actually say we add this as a shadow strength and connect this with this and say the shadow strength is, it goes from 0 to 1 and it has like a very low scaling and the default value is 1.4. And now your operator has a new parameter that doesn't work. Why doesn't it? That's not working. Okay, so which basically animates the shadow opacity. And once again, you can have like presets and stuff to create like different variations of maybe you also want to animate or like change the font size or the font type and stuff like that. So my God, this is ugly. Quickly. At least like get rid of this color. So, any questions to that? I know it was very complicated, but it's the coolest thing on Tour. It doesn't look like that, but it's like super powerful. And once you get into the flow, you can do a lot of stuff with like different things you want to reuse in your demo, instantiate it or something. So with this, you could do things like, you could have like a credit, and you could turn the credit into like a replicate and have like tons of credits, for instance, like because it's just a piece of geometry that you can reuse later. So okay, there were some questions.
I got two questions.
Yeah.
You use a shortcut
Yeah.
keyframes.
Yeah. So the question was, what's a shortcut to go through keyframes? And the answer is it's dot and comma. And it's basically, it's the shortcut for these buttons. And this tooltip should have a name for that shortcut.
Another question. You claim to show how to connect the sound with the visuals to get the effects.
Yeah.
Maybe there is examples.
Yeah, there is the question was how to connect FFT to the visuals. So for the soundtrack, you just insert it. It doesn't work. We haven't implemented it. You can actually. I think it's super straightforward to do this. But I never used that because I played with that and I didn't like it. It was like too noisy and it was much faster, like duplicating keyframes and like building keyframes. For instance, like I will do this in a second. But for like live stuff, there is a nice contributor of the community did something like FFT, and there's an FFT example here, and does like uses the microphone input to do an FFT analysis, and then you can like take a sub range of the FFT and connect it to something. I quickly go into the demo because I wanted to show why I'm not using FFT to animate demos, because most of the time these demos are linear, and if I want to have something like something really, let's say I want to have an earthquake, and the earthquake should be very strong where the sound is loud, then I would do something like, so there's an operator called randomVec3, and this generates an amplitude. Basically, if you connect this to a time, you get some output of a random value, basically. And what you could do is then you could create a value just to make it a little bit more readable and say this is my shake amount. And then you can connect this to the amplitude. When you say the Z, this is the last vector, shouldn't shake at all, so you make it 0. And then you have the camera here, and then you can basically, there's something like position offset here. So I can connect these two. So right now nothing happens. Go back to this. Sometimes if you want to tweak a subsection of your demo, there are these yellow markers, and if you ever worked with After Effects, you can select a subregion, and basically sometimes you only want to have like the substage, and then it would cycle through this B&N. But you can also direct these directly. They are always in the timeline. You can direct this at the appropriate. Okay, let's silent the music to go crazy. And then we had this random back. So this doesn't do anything because the shake amount right now is 0. But if I increase the shake amount and then change this value, something happens. And now if you would take the time and pass this into the time here. So it's shaking, but it's not really shaking because the time is too slow. And then we can say something like multiply, and okay, it should shake faster. So now it's shaking like crazy. And then I can basically animate the shake amount. So I can go and say like I take loop out. I go shake. It's not shaking at all at the beginning, but then when stuff happenings, shit hits the fan, then it should start shaking. Maybe I should move this like in front so it. So, and it sounds like a lot of work, but it's way more precise than anything you could get out of an FFT analysis. Yeah. So, and if you once you are into this like connecting stuff, you make the smooth transition from a designer to coder and vice versa because you start thinking about like. Actually, it's programming, special programming. Okay, there were some more questions over there.
How can you make different scenes or like the camera moving to one position to another, but jumping and not transitioning?
Okay, so the question was how to jump cut the camera, so having different cameras. And For this, there are several possibilities. So one possibility is to, for instance, we could clean up this scene. We could actually now say we have actually a scene and we have a camera, and maybe it would be useful to take the scene and group this into a new operator. Might be legit. This is not big enough for that, but we could do this. Then what we could do is also start animating this camera very rapidly and say make things like there's something like constant that would basically disable the interpolation of the keyframes, and you could basically have like a jump cut because it jumps to this new animation thing. However, most of the time what you want is either a switch or a time clip. And I illustrate both. So maybe we like this together. Oh, this wasn't not grouped very nicely. So let's move this somewhere here. And maybe like we combine this. Clean up our scene a little bit. And so the first thing is time clip. So we already had a time clip there for our mic cube. We take a time clip switch. We rename it to Cam1. And we put it somewhere, let's say here. And then we take the output of the camera, and then we take the output of the time clip switch and put it back here, which means that the whole subgraph is now only evaluated where this time clip switch is. Now we could duplicate this, or we could split it. So let's say we want to have let's enable the talking with audio again. Here, like this sounds like a good place to jump to the next camera. So we can select the time clip, and there's a small button here, split current time clip. If I press this, I now have like a second time clip here. And then we can do, we insert a group. And so then we have a new camera. And the camera renders the same scene, but it could render a different scene, or it could render a different group, because maybe you have like parts of the scenes are rendered, parts are not rendered, so you can start to do something interesting, and then let's say move back, move it from a different angle, or maybe from top or something. So, take this, connect this to a group, and now we basically let's at least animate these guys. Didn't we initially say that rotating this looks interesting? Or not, maybe not this, but these guys. Actually, this was what we wanted to do. So we take time is the current time. We multiply it because we don't want to know, or we don't know how quick we want to rotate this thing. And we take this and connect it with the transform rotation. I'm always way too slow, so we speed this up a little bit. Great. So this was using time clip switches. Let's clean this up a little bit. Somebody, it would be nice to take a picture to you, but I don't have my camera here, so maybe if somebody can borrow me a smartphone and take a picture, I can post this on Twitter. It would be nice. Actually, from the audience, I can take a picture and you can send it to me. Sorry about the commercial break. So, smile. What we could also do is using a switch, and a switch is super powerful because sometimes you have, let's say, you have a torus and you have a cube, and you want to rapidly switch between the torus and the cube. Then you can connect this to a switch, both of them. And now if I'm, what the heck, shortcut. What? Is this? Strange. So now if I'm busy changing the index, it will take the modulo of this index and take whatever, let's say, we also have a text in here. Now it will go through the torus, the sphere, the cube or the text. And of course, this index can be animated. And then you can do a lot of powerful stuff with that. There are two smart values. One is -1, means nothing. And there's another one, I think, -3. Oh, -3 doesn't work anymore. Oh, actually, this is stupid. Oh, sorry about that. So, it used to work. But yeah, there was like one modus where you can actually see like all of the connected inputs, which sometimes might be a good idea. So sometimes you want that. But for some reason, we removed that. Okay, so then you could animate the switch, and then for this, we could switch through different cameras that are below there. There was another question over there.
Can we increase the aesthetic value by changing the font to Comic Sans?
Of course. Only, it's a good sidetrack. It shows a little bit like how we approach tool. So I said we don't have, for instance, movie encoding because we don't want to deal with that. So if somebody needs a movie, he can take the image sequence and encode it on his own. Movie encoding, then you need to pay license fees and stuff like that. So we don't want that. And but we want to enable technologies to do whatever you want. If you want to have a new font, actually loading the TrueType font is like a little bit ugly for demos because then it's like somehow cumbersome to load TrueType fonts that are not installed. I think there's a workaround, but it didn't really work for us. And what we did was we used a tool called BM Font. And with BM Font, you can actually create font images. And if you go to assets common, BM Font, there are a couple of fonts here. So, and it will always create basically images and, what the heck? Images and an XML value that defines like how this image map is being located. And the text operator is actually, it's not code, but if you go in there, then it's, you don't want to look at that, but it loads this BM font image, it blurs the image to create the drop shadow, and then it applies some magic to like have the offset of the drop shadow and stuff like that. So it looks super ugly, I know, but it's basically, in the beginning we just didn't know what we want from these font images, so there came more and more parameters, but only if we needed them. But it's a good use case to show that eventually you put your ugly stuff into an operator and then you don't look at it anymore, and if it does a job, then it's good enough. So.
Yeah, so it's more of a general question about your tool.
Mm-hmm.
A problem we have a lot at work and actually in the demo group too is sometimes like as you project a goal, you have a goal effects, and not everybody is aware of who did what, and you arrive and you see, oh, that effect is kind of cool, but I wanted to change its color, I want to change the timing of that effect,
Mm-hmm.
and you have no idea what that is, so you have to go back to whoever wrote it, and that person wrote it 3 months ago and don't remember exactly which node it is. And I'm curious
mean, I can quickly show you how I would approach that. So, let's say if I take something that was complicated, it was a long time ago, or let's say even take something like of Alex stuff. So Alex stuff always is like crazy stuff. So, and it might be that it looks awkward because we changed the rendering to HDR rendering. So, and this was before this change, so stuff might look weird. So, okay, this is the demo, and of course you have the demo as well, so you can actually see like however he did all the stuff he did. And then I would go in here, and most of the time I would expect some kind of timeline clips, because this is how normally if you have like a multi-scene demo, then you would use time clips. And I would, okay, this is the erste Szene, first scene. I double click here and I jump into like the graph. I could look like here, and like there's like a bunch of post-processing stuff going on here, whatever it is, this is not what I'm looking for. I want to change the width of like the square in the beginning. So like in the beginning we have like this, of course we have to use this layer, and we have to lock it in the beginning. So that we have like these lines. So let's try to find these lines. I have no idea where they are, but it shows the process. So I'm assuming since we only see the square once, it needs to have a time clip switch in the first scene. So I double click here, and this is basically, there's tons of stuff going on here. And then I go through this.
I'm sorry, what did you double click on?
Huh?
Sorry, I didn't know what you double
I double clicked this thing here in the bottom. It's something like a time clip for the first scene. It defines the timing of the first scene. Everything. Yeah, I would assume that, because otherwise he would have to do some really awkward stuff with switches to disable this rendering of this first element, which is totally cumbersome. So the way to do this is like using switches, so using these time clips. And I would go in here, and then I would basically go in there. I didn't explain that, but if you press D, it deactivates the rendering of this complete subgraph. So I can go in here. Okay, it's not that. Okay, it's definitely in here. It's not in here. It's not. It's this one here. Go in here. This is the planet. Some collision. It's not this. Okay, it's this guy. I double click in here, and at least he grouped the sub thing into like this whatever it is. You see, he's obsessed with timing, obviously. So he put like a lot of like keyframes in here. But once again, I would go through this. Okay, it's not this. Okay, it's this. Okay, then we have the cube here, and I guess like this must be the line width. So I would, and then it's not really nicely grouped, so I would basically regroup this. I would say, okay, it's like 4 sides of a thing, and I would basically start having like, okay, this should be, it's the default width, it should be 1.1, and then this goes in here, and this goes in here, and this goes in here. I know it's a little bit cumbersome, but well, this goes in here. But now I have basically one slider where I can change the, maybe I can't, the width of this. Okay, it didn't orient it correctly, but yeah, you see that's, and this is basically how I would drill down. I would have like no mercy whatsoever. I would just do that. So if unless he's working at the same time at the same operator, then you should obviously like align a little bit so you don't like delete something the other guy just did. But otherwise, like regrouping and arranging stuff, I think it's like within the team, it's completely legit. So, and then yeah, sometimes renaming helps. So, for instance, here, Film Collision 2 was a valid name, so this is the renaming he did. But sometimes you could actually do more. So.
So on the website, it's written that you have sensor and finished state machine, and here you seem to use collision operators. So how do you relate between deterministic animation versus real-time updates?
So what we real-time updates? Like how much time do we have left? What's the timing? Does somebody have
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, actually, I would defer that. So I could later show you how to hook up the MIDI controller for instance to get some real-time stuff. But I quickly want to show you how to code things. And so let's jump out of Chronoid. And so what we could do is quickly to have like a little bit of shader programming because it explains a little bit what's going on behind the scenes. So once again we load the chipmunk, and then I create a detect edges, because the detect edges is a good starting point for a shader, for an image-based shader, image post-processing, might be a good starting point. And so I could double-click to detect edges, and what I then have is at the top we have like these tabs here, and on the far right there are like two asterisks. The left asterisk is the C# code, the wrapper, and on the far right it's a complete HLSI shader code. And we can scroll down here, and what we see is that there are tons of these orange comments. Like all comments are orange, but we have these weird triple greater signs, and these define code regions that are auto-generated. So we do this. So I don't want to mess up the detect edges, so let's create a new detect edges. So duplicate this new type, and maybe we put this into our projects, what is it, pink? I don't know, shaders, and then detect edges, detect pink edges, I don't know. So it looks the same because it's detect edges. Let's lock it here. And now, per default, when we open a pixel shader, we look if there is a code region that it's called PS. So if I go back to the right asterisk, we see the complete shader code, and we see here there's a region called PS, and we basically said, for like the non-hardcore developers, actually I don't want to deal with like blending states and passes and stuff like that. They just want to have like their pixel shader, and then they're good with that. And if they want to do more, they can click on the asterisks, but most of the time you want to start with the pixel shader. So then they could do something like, let's say we sample the image here, sample radio, some image sampler, and just take basically return y1 because we sample it here, multiply float for and make it yellow or something, I don't know. So and I press control return, and now it recompiles the shader and it basically skips the evaluation of the rest. And so let's say we want to have like a new detect edges that blends between the inversion and the original, and it's a weird use case, but it's a nice thing to show how to insert a new parameter. So as I mentioned, this is the input range. So we can scroll here with the right mouse button. We right click, we press add value, and we say this is the blend invert factor. Let's call it this way. We don't restrict the min-max values, so 0 and 1 might be a good idea, but sometimes like negative interpolations give interesting results, so I would only restrict and clamp value ranges if it's really necessary. So, but we remove the scale, and we press control return again, and then it should have like blend invert factor into like the smart parameter region, and it should also have inserted this like all the setup that's necessary on the C# side to like evaluate this parameter and read it. And now we can say, okay, so we don't want to return this. So we say this is float 4, this is float for edge is this, and float for inverted is the M new float M say 1 minus wait, sorry about like coding is not my strong side. MRG and minus MGB 1. Let's return the inverted to see what's happening. Inverted. Okay, it's like some inverted color. And then we can say we lerp between the edge and the inverted with the, how do we call this? Blend invert factor. And if I click with left on the input region, I can now like take this parameter and like play with it. And this is really, it's like super rough introduction, but it roughly gives you an idea how it works. So of course, it's, since this is C#, you don't have to do all the time shader stuff. You can also do things like, so my favorite thing is like the modulo operator, because it's a cute little function that actually even non-coders can understand if they understand what the percentage means. So, and if I click once again the asterisk, I get like all the boilerplate stuff which is generated on the fly, which actually I don't really have to care about. So the only thing that is relevant is there's an evaluation context, and the context, there's a documentation on that. There's like value, image, text, like for the different types we have. And you can insert basically a write or write value, and this basically is the current float that is being processed. And with this, you can, since this is C#, you can do all kinds of stuff. So it's super straightforward, for instance, to write a Twitter client and use like the .NET functions to get an asynchronous fetch from somewhere and do it. And yeah, so this was very fast, I admit, but it needs some getting used to, but you can do fancy stuff with that. For instance, maybe like one example is, so I think the second demo we made was Square, also made with this tool. And it takes ages to load, and yeah, the particles are broken because we this HDR change. But if you go back, maybe this is not a good example, but yeah, so it's some remarging function with yeah, field tracing. It's basically just that. It's a post-processing shader that takes tons and tons of parameters, and they compute like something like a shader toy function or so. Yeah, and the nice thing is you can, you can combine these two. You can say you do the remarging, you use the camera, but you don't have to animate the camera inside the shader. You can animate the camera within the tool, and then, for instance, use the camera to blend in these particles. So okay, they are broken in here, but the particles are not sphere traced. They are just normal particle effects. Any more questions? Filled up.
Can you take the result from an image back to inputs?
Feedback effect. Yeah, actually, now we can. I could show you some very fancy stuff, but you could wait for the demo compo. So, yes, you can. And there are, yeah, you can vote, and then they will release the, no, but there's an operator called, I think something like feedback example. I don't know if it's still working actually, because we did, well, obviously it's no longer working. I broke it. Yeah, this is how my stuff normally looks. So okay, it's broken right now. But yes, there is, and it works like use image buffer. And if you render to image, then you give this a string ID, and with use image buffer, you can read this string ID the next frame. But it's one frame delayed. Otherwise, at least I don't know of any. So, yeah, I would say, yeah. Also, my aim for this thing is I have two aims. So, one is I would love to see more demos. So if the excuse is, oh, like writing a tool is too much overhead, I would say at least like, I would try it first. It's much easier to write a tool if you use the tool. Because it's way more complex than you might think, writing a tool. So if you start from scratch, if you do it faster than 3 years, you are very good. So Chaos took in 3 years, it took 5 years. So writing a tool is super, it's much more work than you might think. So make more demos. You can do this with tool. So and you might win. So this is my one aim. Actually, I try actively to go to movie academies and stuff, and to teach them like real-time computer graphics, and they like this a lot. And try to actually make demo parties with them, so we get some new fresh blood into the demo scene. The other aim I actually have is so I'm not the strongest programmer. I know a thing or two about timing or colors or user interaction design, but like for instance, I struggle with matrices and stuff like that, and buffer compositions and compute shaders. And it would be really nice to have like a small community that writes operators. For instance, we don't have stencil shadow, for instance. And so I don't know how we approach this. So right now we have basically 2 new people started working on it, or actually maybe like even 4 or so, that regularly write inside. Right now we have a Slack channel, but maybe it would be more appropriate to something like an IRC channel or so. And to once in a while, hey, I'm working on something, how can I do this? Most of the time I'm answering quite quickly if I have the time. But eventually it would be nice to give the stuff back and say like, okay, I wrote like this little operator, and might come in handy for other people. So yeah. Maybe you find the time and the energy to do this. I would really love that. And yeah, thanks for your time. And yeah.
Silence. Order. I have returned to the demo scene, to all those people who were so mean. I will destroy everything they got. Make me your leader, vote for evil bot.